needed a doctor, fast, but her physician wasn't available, and I wanted her seen as soon as possible. Then I remembered the Wheeling Hospital Urgent Care, right in downtown Wheeling, at the Stone Center on Market Plaza. Open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, the center is ideal if you have a sudden sickness or injury. The doctors and nurses were great, and they also provided x-rays, a pharmacy, and lab draw station. No appointments needed, and convenient parking is nearby. Wheeling Hospital Urgent Care. They'll take good care of you.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the watchdog trusts.
Dutch Boy's new Platinum Plus paint with Stain Shield technology has the performance you expect from a luxury paint at a price you didn't. Platinum Plus is up to 50% more washable and stain resistant than a leading premium paint in satin sheen. Superiority ranges from 24 to 50% depending on sheen selected. Platinum Plus keeps your walls looking new longer. Menards and Dutch Boy Paint have you covered. Go ahead, live your life.
Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Savings or mail-in rebate. See store for details.
Hello, it's John Kozik, founder and president of TurboTrack Realty, and I buy houses as is, fast for cash. Call me today for an all-cash offer on any of your properties, and we can close within days at 614-362-2000, 362-2000. Do you own a property that's outdated and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, I'll buy it. I'm a private real estate investor who can solve your real estate problems fast for cash. Do you want to sell and just be done with it? Okay, great. I buy vacant properties, boarded up houses, pre-foreclosures, and inherited properties. I also buy apartment buildings, rental portfolios, divorce homes. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. I look forward to solving your real estate problems today. Give me a call for an all-cash offer at 614-362-2000, 614-362-2000.
Hello, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm the...
Sean, there yet?
Okay, thank you.
D5, your overnight low of 50 degrees under partly cloudy skies, clouds, limited sunshine in store for your Thursday with temperatures in the low 70s. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
You know what today is, right?
Please, enlighten me.
It is National Cocktail Day.
What's a cocktail?
Is it too early for a drink?
No, it's a little early for me. You guys like to party?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Perhaps you'd like to partake in a party?
Why not celebrate early? It's too early. Today is National Cocktail Day, so you have an excuse.
Okay, you've convinced me.
Happy National Cocktail Day.
Showtime.
News, information, conversation, controversy, and fun. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
Well, my cocktail of choice this morning is Diet Dr. Pepper. That's the best I'm going to do here today. How about you, Biffy?
I have Body Armor.
Excuse me? Sounds like you're playing Iron Man. What?
No, it is it's kind of like...
Energy drink?
No, it's kind of like Gatorade, but it's a sports drink. It's got coconut water, antioxidants, and vitamins.
You didn't get any Fireball from your bottom desk drawer, did you?
Now, I don't think Fireball would go good with blue raspberry.
Oh, no, probably not. Oh, come on, let's be honest about it, Biffy. Fireball goes good with anything.
No, I'm sure it would. Now, maybe if there were apple in here, if there were a little bit of apple, then yeah, I'm sure it would be good.
A little Fireball would be good, yeah.
Yeah. But no, that's...
How's that bottle doing? Do I need to replenish that for you anytime soon? I'm coming in today. Should I bring you an extra bottle? I mean, is it getting low?
Yeah, actually, I probably have about another sip or two of Body Armor left, and then it's gone. Fireball's still good, though. It's
Fireball's still good?
Oh, yeah, it's hanging on, but the Body Armor's got about another drink or two left, and it'll be gone.
8:12 in the morning here on the Watchdog Morning Show. 54 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. 54 here at my home studios in Elm Grove. And 54 at the Robinson Auditive Studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. It's a cloudy morning outside. Just peeking out the window here of the house. It's a cloudy morning. A little bit of light rain showers throughout the Ohio Valley. Spotty showers this morning. And maybe a little bit more later in the day. Not heavy rain at all today, but widespread spotty showers. Nice warm day, though. Going to be close to 70 today. 72 for the high tomorrow. Although tomorrow we do see rain all throughout the day and all throughout the area. Coming up a little bit later on, Hoppy Kirchwell and I are going to talk about the 26th Amendment, giving the 50-year-olds. It is the 50th anniversary of the 26th Amendment. The amendment that gave the 18-year-olds the right to vote. It was one of the very first radio shows I ever did 50 plus years ago when I first started this business, was arguing that the 18-year-old folks could be sent to war. How come we couldn't get a chance to vote? And eventually we did. Hoppy and I will talk about that coming up a bit later on this morning. And I also try and get into the story out of the Intel today, where they have posted a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Wheeling and Bluefield State College. This is the one that for the past week has been highly controversial. Community College President Dr. Dan Mosser claimed there was a secret deal, $2 million a year going to be given to Bluefield State. This was all underhanded and friends and family plan, all that stuff. The city has unequivocally denied it. I said yesterday, well, why don't you show us the MOU? And they have done that. And in my cursory reading of it, at least this morning, courtesy of the Intel, is that the city is right. There was no kind of special deal being given to Bluefield State. They outline things they have to discuss, and they outline things they're not going to discuss. Bluefield State will pay for their own rent, will pay for their own utilities, will pay for their own share of any build-out that has to be done, and so on. I'll take more time to talk about that later on. Now, we have spent a lot of time on this show on the governor's income tax reduction plan. And I give the governor this credit for this. Governor Justice knew that reducing the income tax meant a gigantic hole, of course, in our budget. 43% of our budget comes to the income tax. So reducing it by 60%, huge hole in the budget. The governor at least understood you got to do something to make up for that. So he put together this package of tax increases, which has generated huge opposition, and correctly so. In the House, the Finance Committee is putting together its own plan, which seems to me to be even less certain about the future. But I got to be honest, I can't quite figure it out. So I thought what I should do is go to somebody who spends his time looking at this sort of stuff and bring into the show Sean O'Leary from the Center on Budget and Policy. Sean, good morning, first of all.
Good morning, Howard. How are you?
Good. It is National Cocktail Day. You don't have a cocktail this morning, do you?
Not yet. What if you are?
All right, well, that's, here at this place, sometimes we're not so sure it's too early, but I get you. Listen, here's what I want you to do for me. Pretend like we are third graders or members of the House of Delegates, and explain this House finance plan to me in real simple, I can understand them kind of terms. What exactly is the Finance Committee trying to do?
Well, I will tell you that if you listen to the Finance Committee meeting on Monday, you would not know what they're doing, because they asked no questions, they did not really describe the bill, and they just passed it without almost any... We'll talk about this bill longer than they talked about it this morning.
Gotcha.
But it says two things. So first, it will every year... It's so complicated, Howard. So there's an initial cut. Everyone's just going to get a cut to the income tax rate, and each marginal rate gets a cut, from 0.2 to 0.3 to 0.4 to 0.5 cut. That's in the first year. Then after that, every year they will take however much income tax revenue we have that previous year, subtract $150 million, and say, okay, whatever rate we need to have to get this new number is the new rate. And then the next year, they'll do it again and say, okay, last year's number, take away $150 million, new rate. So now it's $300 million down. Then the next year, take away $150 million. New rates. Now we're at $450, and so on. And it just does that every single year. Every January 1st, they reduce it by $150 million. So that's a little odd.
And this would be cumulative. This would be cumulative.
Yeah,
so the first year it's 150, the second year it would be 300, and so on.
450, then 600, and so on. So that's odd that it does it that way. So that confuses things a little bit. Then there's this other part of the bill called the Income Tax Reduction Fund. It has nothing to do with that first part. That first part happens no matter what. This Income Tax Reduction Fund takes about $60 million from current revenue. So it actually takes income tax revenue, sales tax revenue, severance tax revenue, about $60 million, and puts them into a fund. And then it's going to take some amount of excess lottery fund. And because there's no fiscal note, we don't know how much. But it's based on some other bills that look similar. It's probably over $100 million, and the excess lottery fund is only about $290 million, and that pays for comic scholarships, that pays for Medicaid, that pays for infrastructure bonds, that pays for school bonds. It's all money that is currently tied up, but it takes over $100 million and puts that into the fund, and then that fund will accumulate, and every time that fund hits $400 million. They'll take $100 million out of it and put it into general revenue. So that, gives the appearance that there's going to be some sort of cushion. Except whenever they do that, then instead of a $150 million reduction, they have to do a $300 million reduction. So that income tax reduction fund, it sounds like it's a trigger, it sounds like it's, a phase out or a cushion or, some sort of backstop, but it actually just accelerates things. And anytime we hit that trigger, and again, we don't know how quickly or how fast or how much that will hit because we did no fiscal analysis of this bill before they passed it, we'll double the tax cut for that year. So then instead of a $150 million reduction, it'll be a $300 million reduction, and we'll still have to figure out where to come up with that money, the $150 every year, plus wherever the $100 million that you're taking from the lottery, plus the $60 million that you're taking from other areas of the general revenue fund to make the plan work. So the best case scenario for the state budget is that in 5 to 6 years there'll be $1 billion hole.
The best case scenario.
If this fund, triggers a additional tax cut on top of that. And then the big difference that you alluded to from the governor's plan is that there's no offsetting revenue. There's no, we're going to have something new coming in to fill this hole that we're creating every year. There's nothing. And because it doesn't start right away, because it starts next year, we don't have to think about that. The legislature doesn't have to weigh out what cuts they would have to make, what areas of the budget they're going to adjust, what services we're going to have to stop. That's all for next year's legislature to worry about.
Now, you said, Sean, you said there's no fiscal note, so we don't really, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have any idea what even this initial cut is going to mean in terms of dollars and cents, right? I mean...
Yeah, so we don't know what that first one is. And again, because, they didn't have the bill available, the text of the bill available when they were talking about it, is that, it sounded like they thought that first cut would also be $150 million, but it wasn't entirely clear. The numbers we looked at when we saw the rate reductions, it would be in the neighborhood of around $100 million, but because it would happen January 1st, it would be only half of fiscal year for that first one. And then after that is when it really starts to accumulate.
So, just make sure I understand this. So, beginning next year, next calendar year, actually, I guess, and it'll be, because it's half of the fiscal year, let's take your number of $100 million. We would immediately see a $50 million reduction in the budget the beginning of the year for next year. Taking these numbers, recognize that we're not really sure, but using them as best guess numbers, we would start with a $50 million reduction in the budget for next year.
Right. And then the next year it would be $200 million. And then the next year it would be $350 million, and then the next year it would be $500 million, and then the next
Because
year
each year we're adding another $150 million in reduction.
Compounds, it stacks on top of the previous year's reduction.
And again, to make sure I'm not missing this, so this simply would be revenue gone, not replaced in any way. So that would simply mean beginning of the year, $50 million, the next year, $200 million in actual cuts somewhere in our budget. That would be, I mean, that's what it would lead to, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting about this bill is that, there's always the argument out there, well, if you lower the rate, the growth will make up for it. Except this bill is structured in a way that it's not technically lowering the rate, it's literally lowering the revenue. The revenue has to go down. They will set the rate to equal the new lowered revenue amount. So there will be
the rate is created by the amount of dollars that we have to take out based on previous dollars collected.
Exactly. So, people would ask, so what's the average tax cut going to be for, middle income or high income or low income? And the answer is we really don't know, because we don't know what that, we kind of put together some numbers and said that $150 million would be equivalent to a 0.4 percentage point reduction in each rate. So the top rate would go from, 6 to 5.6, and the bottom rate would go from 3 to 2.4. So that's our guess. But again, we don't, that's again just a guess. If there was a normal tax cut bill like the bill last year or the governor's bill, you'd know what those rates are, and you can do an analysis of it. Where this is, the revenue has to go down. It is literally a revenue reducing bill, not necessarily a rate reduction bill. It is the revenue, no matter what happens in the state, no matter what happens to the economy, no matter what happens to the budget, every year we have to reduce the amount of revenue.
So theoretically, even if somehow we had growth because of this, growth period for whatever reason, we would still have to reduce. We can never, the growth will never overcome the reality that we have to reduce every year, right?
Right, because the way that the bill is structured is that you take whatever, if we said $2 billion this year, next year we have to be $150 million below that. So we have to be at, 185. And then if we're at 185 this year, next year we have to be at 160. And it just keeps going on like that.
The finance chair, help me. Who's the finance chair?
Eric Householder.
Eric Householder, yeah. That he said on Hoppy's show yesterday that this plan has, quote, the wow factor. To me, it's got the factor. I mean, Biffy, did you follow all this, pal?
Yeah, I'm keeping track on my whiteboard.
I was going to say, I think we need to get the governor's whiteboard out for this. This is it's complicated. I guess it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense, if you understand what I'm saying, Sean.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they're doing it this way, other than instead of just reducing the rate, which would make more sense to me. That's usually how the governor's bill did it. That's how past bills have done it. Past tax cuts have always done it that way in West Virginia. But this guarantees revenue losses. And you're reducing the amount of revenue every year by its same code. So it's very unique. And to me, the wow factor is, I keep thinking back. Behind closed doors in January, the Republican caucus circulated a memo and said, here are all the cuts we would have to make to eliminate the income tax. We would have to eliminate the promise scholarship. We would have to cut, all state agencies by 10 to 20%. We would have to eliminate services. We would probably have to stop funding WVU and Marshall. This plan, there's no mention of that. No mention of that.
Well, probably because when that survey went out, it turned out it was unpalatable to anybody, including Republicans.
But that's how this is going to work. You have two options. You have the governor's plan, which is you get rid of the income tax, and you have to replace at least some of it with taxes that people don't like, because what else are you going to do? When you have We basically have sales, income, and property taxes. Property taxes are capped in our Constitution, and they basically all go to local government, so there's not a whole lot the state can do there. So then you're looking at sales tax, so we have to increase the sales tax. We have to increase consumption taxes on tobacco and alcohol and soda and all those things. Or you have those memos circulated by the House Republicans that said, or we make all these cuts, we make all these budget cuts, and also some tax increases. Because even the governor's plan with all of the tax increases still only got you like halfway there. That's the reality. And what this bill does is it takes the parts that no one likes, the tax increases that will have to recover the revenue, or the budget cuts that will have to be made to offset the losses, and just puts it off for a year or two, and lets a future legislature have to decide. And a future governor will have to propose that in his budget, and not right now. So it gives them all the credit and all the positive aspects. We cut the income tax. We put us on a plan to eliminate the income tax. And 3 or 4 years down the road, there's going to be some big problems for somebody, but not us. We don't have to worry about that right now. That is the exact scenario that Kansas found themselves in. And everyone hates to bring that comparison up, and they say we're doing it differently. Kansas had a march to zero. They started with a big cut, and then started big cuts each year. And after 4 years, when they were down $1 billion, which is the exact schedule we're on, they had to take it all back. And they had to make unpopular tax cuts. They had to make unpopular budget cuts. They had to make unpopular tax increases. And they eventually had to repeal their plan altogether. There's nothing different in our plan from that. There's no safeguard. There's no, protection. There's no, well thought out trigger. The trigger only doubles the tax cut. And it also, we're also doing this at a time when we're seeing a lot of bills come out of the legislature that are spending a lot of new money.
Cost a lot of money, yeah. Sean, you are primarily the guy who looks at numbers, so that's really your focus here. But politically, I don't know. The governor's bill is not faring well politically, that's for sure. I don't know that this bill is going to fare any better politically. I don't know that it's going to gather a lot of interest across the board, the House and the Senate, Democrats and Republicans. I mean, I think even Republicans are going to have to look at this and go, it's just too complicated,
What they will have to do is not look at it right now, is look at it in 3 years and say, what are we going to do then? Because, again, right now, they don't have to make any of those tough decisions. They don't have to make any of those cuts that are in the memo. They don't have to raise any of the sales taxes that the governor is talking about. But in 3 or 4 years, when we're down $600 million, and we're in a $5 billion budget, that's a significant chunk of money to have to make up somewhere. And that's when you start, having to make those painful choices. And if they don't want to have to make those painful choices, then they need to really, really consider what's going on with this plan. Because right now, I did this little thought experiment a few weeks ago, just walking through the budget, and just started, cutting everything. I cut every single state agency by 20%, and any program that didn't look like it was absolutely necessary, just eliminated it. And got rid of the Common Scholarship, got rid of all the higher education grants, cut all the colleges by 30%, cut all the education programs, basically anything I could find that was not absolutely required. And I got to about $500 million.
So we're still
and these were and that and so we're talking about $2 billion. So a quarter of the way there. And that was hard to do. And that was me not even really thinking hard about what the impact of these programs would be. It was just, we got to do it. We got to, let's do 20% here. Let's do 30% here. Let's do 20% here. It's very, very difficult to make those numbers work. But, but they kept talking in the committee meeting, well, $150 million, that's not that much. So that's modest. You can do that. But again,
but that's the first cut.
And you're stacking it on top of past years. So after you cut 150 this year, you got to cut another 150 the next year, and then you got to find another 150 the next year, and again and again and again. And again, unlike the governor's plan, there's nothing new coming in to help fill that hole.
I am not a fan of the governor's plan. I want to be very clear. I think it's not a good idea. But I got to give him credit for at least being honest. If we're going to cut the revenue, we've got to lay out, if we're going to cut the revenue from income tax, we've got to lay out how are we going to, compensate for that. And he's done that. I don't think it's a good idea, but at least he's been honest about that part of it. At least he says, look, I got to cut your income tax and you're going to see a huge influx of people into the state. It's all going to be good. But in the meantime, you're going to have to pay more taxes. I give him credit for honesty, at least.
Right, and the governor's plan, no one liked it. I didn't like it. But that's what the tax systems look like in states that don't have income taxes. They have very high sales taxes. They have other taxes on other things that you don't even think about. They usually have really high property taxes. But again, in West Virginia, we can't do that. And the thing about the governor's plan, too, was that all those new taxes didn't cover his 60% income tax cut.
Right.
And we're talking about a 100% income tax cut. So even then, even if they did adopt all of the governor's tax increases and added it to this plan to help make it work, we would still need over $1 billion from somewhere else.
No. Sean, I got to move on, but I appreciate you. I have a better understanding, seriously, now than I did before. And that's not good, because it's now I'm even more scared. Did this pass the Finance Committee, or do they have to revisit this in committee yet?
It passed the Finance Committee. It will be on first reading today, and there will probably be a final vote on Friday.
Oh, my Lord. Okay. All right, Sean, I appreciate you and the work that you do, and all the folks at the Center for Budget and Policy do. Thanks very much for joining me. We may touch base again in the near future. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Howard.
All right, Sean O'Leary from the Washington Center on Budget and Policy. Yeah, I don't have a whiteboard, Biffy, but I was trying to keep track of all this. So we initially cut the rate, and then we cut it by $150 million below whatever the revenue is that comes in the next time, and then $150 million the next year, the next year, and the next year. And then we have this reduction fund that we start with $60 million and plus some lottery money into it, and we hold it till it gets to $400 million, and then we put $100 million back into. I at least understood the governor's plan. I don't like it, but at least I understood it.
You could follow it.
Yeah, we're going to cut the income tax, and then we're going to raise other taxes. We're going to raise sales tax by 1.9%. We're going to raise pop tax and soda tax and cigarette. And that's how. And then we're still going to have a budget hole. We'll have to figure out how to do it. I get that. At least that makes sense. Whew. I have an idea for all of them. Go home. Just call it quits and go home. Don't do any more damage to the state. You have dug the hole really, really deep. Just don't dig anymore. Put the shovel down. Go home. 8:35, 25 till the hour here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Kercheval, and I'm going to ask Hoppy if he even understands this. Hoppy Kercheval with me in the next segment of the show. We're going to talk about the 26th Amendment, the right of the 18-year-old to vote, and whether it was a good idea way back then, 50 years ago, or not, because I don't know that we have a lot of young people voting to the extent that we thought we would now. Hoppy and I will talk about that, but I got to ask him about this House Finance Plan, too. This is just... Biffy, when I come down today, I'm going to see if I can't get a whiteboard and move it into the studio. I think we're going to need that.
Yeah, I think we are too.
Let's take a break. Not headlines, but headlines from the Big Seven and some sports for you. And then Hoppy will join me on the Watchdog Morning Show.
The WTRF Channel 7 News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers.
basketball team sees its
for everyone.
The season has come to an end for the West Virginia University women's basketball team. WVU eliminated in the second round of the NCAA tournament last night, losing by a final score of 73-56 to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech entered in as the 5 seed. West Virginia was the 4 seed, and it was just one of those games for WVU. The Mountaineers trailed by 4 points at halftime, and then really the game was decided in the third quarter when Georgia Tech outscored West Virginia 22-9. Georgia Tech was dominant on the glass, out-rebounding West Virginia by 14 boards, 36-22. WVU's Kaiser Gondrazak, a first-team All-Big 12 selection, just could not find her comfort zone all evening long, finishing up with 3 points. WVU was led by Esme Martinez, who scored 13 points and had 9 rebounds. Kari Nyblack finished up with 12 points and 6 boards, and KK Deans ended the game with 11 points. West Virginia falls second round of the NCAA tournament, and it brings to close to a very productive season. The Mountaineers finished the year at 22-7. On the men's side, news coming yesterday that Jordan McCabe, the junior, has entered his name into the transfer portal, issued a social media statement thanking the Mountaineer coaching staff, his teammates, but he will move on and play somewhere else next season. And WVU's Sean McNeil announcing yesterday that he will enter his name into the NBA draft for evaluation, but the belief is that he will return next season to WVU. That is today's Mountaineer Report. It's brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics. I'm Tony Caridi on the Mountaineer Sports Network from Learfield, IMG College.
Hey man, what can I get you?
Yeah, can I have 2 Coors Lights?
You got it. Hey Mike! I need 2 Coors Lights!
Sure thing!
With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time.
Here you go.
Thanks, Mike. Doing a great job. All right, 2 ice-cold Coors Lights.
That's the coldest beer I've ever had.
Hey, they don't call it the world's most refreshing beer for nothing.
Okay, be honest with me. Do you really have the Rocky Mountains in your beer cooler?
You don't believe it? Check it out.
Man, that's pretty amazing.
I know, right? I can't believe it myself sometimes. I mean, this cooler is only 3 feet wide.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
Oh, there's something so real about living local. And I know without a doubt I'm not alone. And I love.
Alrighty, thank you.
It's working for me. The Ohio Valley is where I love to be.
In a divided year, we can still be united through giving. There is a $300 above-the-line tax deduction this year thanks to the CARES Act. You can take a $300 deduction for charitable donations. As an organization that promotes giving, the United Way of the Upper Ohio Valley encourages you to utilize this tax deduction. Consider making a donation to a nonprofit agency with a cause that's important to you. Any donation made to the United Way will go towards our annual campaign supporting local programs focusing on the community's toughest needs.
Tridelphia. The watchdog is protecting your yard. Join Howard Monroe, Hoppy Kercheval, Bill DeFabio, and Big Rick for the best live and local talk in the Upper Ohio Valley and beyond. Tridelphia trusts the watchdog.
You can watch a video cast of our show every morning on Facebook Live or on our website. Plus, check archives of all of our videos on the Watchdog YouTube channel. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
55 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 55 here at my home studios in Elm Grove, 55 at the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling, in the heart of the Ohio Valley, where we do have cloudy skies and a little tiny bit of rain floating around here in the valley today. Going to see rain, kind of spotty rain throughout the day, not downpours or anything, but a little spotty rain. Might see a little bit of sun coming in this afternoon. Going to get up to 70 today, 72 tomorrow, with more widespread rain during the day tomorrow. You know, there's always that one team that ruins your bracket. That's why this year you ought to bet the tournament on FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Because on FanDuel, your first bet is risk-free. It doesn't matter whether you're going to bet the top seed Gonzaga or whether you're going for the Cinderellas like Oral Roberts. Whatever you do, new users get up to $1,000 in site credit back if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel has odds on all the action, games day and night, an easy-to-use app, multiple deposits, fast withdrawals, and always-on promotions. So, and if that's not enough, FanDuel right now wants to make you a millionaire. Yep, you make you a millionaire. They're giving away $1 million to one lucky bettor. New and existing users get an additional shot at the payout every day that you bet the tourney. So if you want a shot at becoming a millionaire or even a thousandaire, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, use my name, Monroe, in the promo code box, and get started. FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code Monroe. You must be 21 or older, physically present in Pennsylvania or West Virginia. No purchase necessary. Restrictions do apply for the $1 million drawing. Risk-free offer for the first online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable. Expires in 14 days. Restrictions do apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. If you have fun with gaming, then download FanDuel. But if gaming is a problem for you, then call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. I am so far behind time on things. I'm not going to have a chance to get into this memorandum of understanding from the city of Wheeling today. Morning Intel today continues the story of City of Wheeling and Bluefield State College and that memorandum of understanding for space in the OVMC building. And I said yesterday that one of the ways to put an end to the claims by the community college president and others that there's some secret deal going to cost the taxpayers millions of dollars a year and so on, which the city has denied. Well, I said one of the ways to solve this is just to put the memorandum of understanding out. And the city has done that. A copy of it's in the Morning Intel today. I encourage you reading it. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. But essentially, it says what the city has been claiming. There are a couple of terms already negotiated. And they are: the college, Bluefield State, shall be responsible for all maintenance. The college shall pay a share for the utilities that they use. The college shall pay for capital costs to maintain the integrity of the property they use. Then terms that still have to be negotiated that are not negotiated are how much the lease is going to be, the exact space to be used, any renovations that would be necessary. And there is one provision here under the terms to negotiate, not done, but to negotiate, discussions concerning providing a 1-year grace period for payment on the new lease by the college. So I'll get into more of this tomorrow. We've had all the council members, the mayor, and everybody else on with us over the last week, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Intel today also follows up on a Metro News story yesterday, looking at how complicated it's going to be for Bluefield State to get the various state approvals that it needs. All right, I just want to get that in there. Kept Hoppy Kirchwell waiting a little bit, but that's okay. He's kept me waiting every once in a while. Good morning, Hop.
Good morning. Well, you guys got a real fight going on that college thing.
That is, I got to tell you, last Tuesday night's council meeting was one of the nastiest I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, and I've covered it for a lot of years. The the presentation by the community college president, Dr. Mosser, was really aggressive. I mean, it was like watching Tucker Carlson or something. It was just, it was really aggressive. And the charges that he made, the allegations that he made, and the way in which he made them. And I got to tell you, I've talked to every single member of council now, on the air and off the air as well. And man, none of them were pleased with being attacked the way that they were. And again, now that the memorandum of understanding is out, I think it looks like the city is right. There's no deal made. There's no special deal made. The friends and family plan with your ethically challenged friend Rob Capehart, they said.
Oh.
Yeah. That's.
Howard, you're getting like me. You're excited over a memorandum of understanding.
I was just going to say, and I don't want this taken the wrong way, but man, I'm glad there's all this trouble going on, because I was getting tired of day after day of the legislatures.
Oh, yeah. My goodness.
Gives me something.
Thank goodness I just have it in my hands, the memorandum of understanding. Stop the presses, yeah. But look, I mean, that's important, and it's an important local issue. It's obviously, emotions are very high, and you're covering it closely, so good for you.
Yeah. Quick 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever. On the House Finance Committee's proposal for income tax, I had Sean O'Leary on from the Center on Budget Policy in the last half hour trying to get a feel for how this plan is going to work. It's a little bit complicated, it seems to me. Do you understand what they're trying to do, and what do you think about the House Finance Committee's proposal?
Well, when you ask me, do I understand what the legislature is trying to do, I have to cautiously say, I think I do. The plan, as I understand it, is for a gradual reduction in the state income tax annually until there is no more state income tax. And the way that would be done is that every year you would lower, you would take you would take $150 million out of expected revenue and say, what does that amount to in terms of a percentage, and then lower the state income tax by that percentage. So in essence, it holds the line on state spending, and it gradually lowers the state income tax until the state income tax disappears with no income tax increases, which puts it in direct opposition to the governor's plan, which more quickly gets rid of the state income tax, but also raises a series of taxes to offset the declining revenue.
I'm opposed to the governor's plan, but I have to say, and I've said all morning, I give the governor credit for honesty. I think he is more honest about the reality that you can't get rid of this huge amount of revenue without replacing it somehow, some way. I don't like what he's done. But I give him credit for at least saying I gotta compensate for this somehow. This House Finance plan, I mean, it really kind of leaves up in the air what's going to happen down the road. It's going to happen down the road. I don't know.
Also, I think what's going to happen is the House is going to pass this bill. The Senate then is going to take up that bill and insert its own bill, a strike and insert that would be closer to the governor's bill, and then send that back to the House and see what happens. I think, Howard, and you can never tell, but I think the whole thing is going to collapse under its own weight, or nothing. It will not get done, and the governor maybe will call a special session and continue to push for it, something like that.
Yeah, I've predicted all along. This is not when we only had the governor's plan. That this is not. We're not going to see this done this session. I just don't think so. And I think part of the reason is Brad and I have talked about quite a good bit, and you and Brad have talked about as well. Every element of the governor's plan is worthy of in-depth discussion and debate. Every single item of it, let alone taken as a big package. So I think you're probably right. But
you're in a spot there. I mean, Wheeling, where this is it's relevant to everybody, but I think particularly in Wheeling, where in a mile you can be in Ohio, and in 10 miles you can be in Pennsylvania. So
in the city of Wheeling, we have an additional 1% sales tax.
Yeah. So now you're talking about a 9% sales tax.
Yeah, almost 9.9, so almost 10%. Yeah. And sometimes I think, and I've said before, I'm not sure the governor understands. I had lunch at Melman's on Sunday. I mean, it's not. We're not making some giant effort to go somewhere else. We all in this area cross that bridge multiple times a day. It's not like we're having to go to Pittsburgh or travel to Columbus or make some big journey. We all make it every single day to cross the bridge to go into Ohio for whatever reason. And give us an extra incentive, and we'll just spend more money over there. So I wanted to talk to you just very briefly, though, about you had a commentary yesterday at WVMetroNews.com about the 26th Amendment. 50 years ago this week, that's amazing to me because I was a fledgling broadcaster, and it was one of the first topics that we ever talked about on my radio show, Teen Line, Teens Talking on Teen Topics, was should the 18-year-old be given the right to vote? And it was a milestone when that was really passed.
Yeah, it was, and as I researched for that piece, I came to realize that the movement for that really started back during World War II when President Roosevelt lowered the draft age to 18, and then that prompted the statement which was sort of became the rallying cry. If you're old enough to fight and die for your country, how come you're not old enough to vote for the leaders who are sending these people into the conflicts? Then it reemerged in the Vietnam War, which people of our age remember. And Jennings Randolph, the late Jennings Randolph, longtime congressman and senator from West Virginia, was consistently pushing for this to lower the voting age to 18, and it was unsuccessful 10 times. And then finally, in 1971, the 11th time, it did get through Congress, and as a proposed amendment to the Constitution, had to be approved by 3/4 of the states. And West Virginia became the 26th state to ratify, and North Carolina was the 38th, which was the 3/4 mark, and then it became law. So it was a long process, and I'm sure that people today, I'm confident that 18, 19, 20-year-olds, many of them don't know the history of that.
I suspect they don't. And one of the things that makes me a little bit sad is, because this is something I fought for when I was in that age group, is I don't think young people today take as much advantage of the vote as they should or as I thought they would.
Yeah, I didn't get to the numbers on that. I did some research on that as well, and I think the numbers might surprise you. I think it's a little bit better than we sometimes assume, but clearly, I thought this was a wonderful quote by Randolph, who passed away in 1998, who said, "I believe that our young people possess a great social conscience, are perplexed by injustices which exist in the world, and are anxious to rectify these ills." I think perhaps there's a tendency by some of us of our age to look and say, well, these young people, they don't have life experiences, they don't know. But I tell you what they do have. They do have fresh eyes on an issue, and they have energy, and they believe they can change the world. And there's a lot to be said for that. So,
and they have passion when they want to.
Yeah.
You certainly saw it during particularly the first election of Barack Obama, where you saw a huge number of young people, really getting out and becoming active in that election.
And Bernie Sanders, a lot of...
and Bernie Sanders, another good example. Yes, exactly. I guess it requires something I'm not sure that they're consistently engaged in the political arena in a large way, but that when something is big enough to gather their interest, I hate to talk about oh my God, it makes me feel old when I'm talking about their interest, but it gathers their interest, they really get passionately behind it. And but it certainly made sense. Again, I remember it so well, how bizarre it seemed that you could be drafted and sent to Vietnam.
Right.
And yet you couldn't vote for the people who were drafting you. It just wasn't right about that.
That was a great irony. It was true in World War II, and it was true, in Vietnam and all conflicts in between. And it really resonated in the 1960s, and of course the movement against the Vietnam War, the youth vote, was popular on campus. And then finally it happened. And Jennings Randolph, who is often described as the portly and courtly senator from West Virginia, 11 times, and he finally got it through, and the states approved it. And so in Randolph's legacy, and he was, I think, kind of an old school new Democrat liberal, Howard, you remember him, who was very conscious about bringing things back to West Virginia. But in his legacy is the 26th Amendment, which is pretty significant.
I knew that was part of his legacy, if you will, but I didn't realize until I read your piece yesterday how long it had been that he had been fighting for that and how often it had been rejected before it was finally passed. So
yeah, I'm not. Go ahead. You got to go.
No, I appreciate it. I'm running out of time. A statewide talk line today. What do you got coming up, real quick?
Oh, why don't we talk about taxes? Why don't we talk about these tax bills? Why don't we put everybody to sleep and have their eyes closed?
Get a whiteboard out. I've discovered that. If I talked to Sean O'Leary last segment, you need a whiteboard for this. Get a whiteboard out so you can use it. All right, Hop, I appreciate your time. We'll look for you at 10:06 today. Thanks.
Thank you, Howard. My pleasure.
Hoppy Kirchville statewide talk line host coming up today at 10:06. But first, the legislative watchdogs are coming up next here on the watchdog. As for me, good Lord willing, creeks don't rise, bat phone doesn't ring. I don't get impeached. I don't retire. Ticker keeps on ticking. I don't overeat myself. And most importantly, Teddy says it's all right. You can go back to work tomorrow, Granddad. Then I'll return tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, into the go route of the big gig. Are you back with me, Brother Biff?
I will be here for Thursday.
We're going to keep on doing this until we get it right.
That could be a long time.
Oh, my, yes.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
From ABC News.
All right, Biffy. Another day done. Wasn't bad at all today, I don't think. I was fairly pleased with it. Sean's line was a little bit muffled, but I could live with it. It wasn't too bad. All right, I'm going to wrap things up here. I'll be down at the office a little bit. If you need anything, just holler. I'll be down there for a while. And otherwise, I will see you. Let's see, tomorrow, I have not heard confirmation from Brent Benjamin, but I'm thinking of Brent Benjamin. And also, I've got the director of the CIC in Belmont County talking about the survey they're doing on what's wrong with Bel Air. Yeah, I thought that might spark some conversation at least. So I've got those things scheduled. We'll see what else pops up. All right, I'll see you in a little bit. Thanks for your help today. I appreciate it as always. All right, bye.
Outside the King Supers Market. Authorities say the alleged shooter, 21-year-old Ahmed Alisa, had purchased the AR-style weapon that sowed so much carnage only a week before, and that during the rampage he wore a green tactical vest.
The European Union is fighting to make sure any vaccines manufactured in Europe stay in Europe. That is, British drug maker AstraZeneca is working to fix issues with the data it submitted to the FDA.
The pharmaceutical company promising an updated analysis in the next 2 days, admitting that original data was cut off February 17th, but saying data was similar over the past month.
ABC's Rena Roy. The EU says it has a plan ready to guarantee more vaccines produced in the bloc are available to its own citizens before being exported. German Chancellor Angela Merkel reversing course, dropping plans for a 5-day shutdown over Easter, calling the idea now a mistake. You're listening to ABC News.
Hey, James, that order just doubled. We got to move fast here.
Indeed, and those unexpected growth can stretch your business thin.
Somebody pick up